Welcome to the Finally podcast. I'm Dan Fisher here with Michelle Niemiec, our post-production producer. Michelle, let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am the post producer at Bottle Rocket Media, so I oversee the post department. That's the freelance editors, designers. The other thing I do is work with the post interns. Right now we have one, and then she works closely with the marketing team, which has an intern there as well. My day-to-day really is keeping track of all the projects. So I come in and I see if any Slack channels are flashing, and then I open up my email, see if any clients need anything, and then I start my day with any meetings that start at 9:30. But throughout the day, I'm in charge of all the projects. So whatever freelancers are working that day, I of course check in with them.
So what I heard, which is a lot, is you oversee logistics of post-production, you handle client service, quality control, deliverables, and creative.
Right.
Of that list, what do you look forward to?
Working with the freelancers, because I've really grown, really close with some of them. So it's nice catching up, and sometimes there's no freelancer working. So like even yesterday, I caught up on the phone with one of our freelancers that works with us a lot, just because I haven't heard from him since before the holiday. And I'm like, don't worry, I have something for you coming up, just to get a little chat in with him.
As I was driving in this morning, I was thinking about how many freelancers we have come through Bottle Rocket Media on an annual basis. Probably because I just saw a stack of W-9s on my desk. But thought it would be good to talk about best practices, from the freelancer point of view. Like, what have you seen that's worked? What works for you in managing a relationship with freelancers?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like, we do work with a lot more freelancers now. Something that I really like is when I get to talk to them. They work with me, and we kind of gel with that person. We both trust each other. I know that when I give them a project, it's going to be a seamless project from start to finish. And to get to that kind of relationship and that kind of trust, you really just need to communicate with them from the beginning.
I think one thing you said that's worth spending a minute on is we get a lot of submissions. We get a lot of submissions every day. And we get a lot of submissions of people that don't have a reel, don't have a proper resume. And, unfortunately, like, there's enough competition out there that the most talented people are going to work. And so you got to start somewhere. I'm aware of that and sympathetic to that. And
right.
I think, as a freelancer, you could apply to anything that comes your way. You could reach out to any company you want to work with, but also maybe manage your expectations, knowing the type of work that we do, if you're a good fit. Most of our interactions are really healthy and positive, and we do our best to respond as quickly as possible to people who reach out. And from time to time, we get people that just don't understand if we pass. And sometimes it's because the work isn't up to standards that we set. Sometimes our roster is full. So, I think for freelancers, it's important to be diligent, to follow up, to use a proper chain of communication, but also have realistic expectations.
Right, and I think it's really important also, like, not only follow up, but if because there's two kinds of follow up. A follow up where you haven't heard from us, but there's also a follow up where it's like, hey, I did some really amazing work the last couple months. I wanted to share it with you, just so that we know that a reel is updated or there's something new.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the way all business is. That's the way all business is done. Is staying in touch with your network. And so even if I've worked with you for the last 5 years straight, if you stop communicating with me, it eventually, if it eventually will become a situation where we might not think of you for a particular job.
Right.
When you have a roster, let's say, we have 4 or 5 editors that are our first call, we have 4 or 5 designers, that we call unless there's a specific style we're looking for. What advice could you give, freelancers to sort of break in, to sort of, get higher on the list, frankly?
I think just following our social media and LinkedIn. I mean, the marketing department does a great job posting all of our recent work. And, a lot of the clients that we have are returning clients. So if it's something that you're interested in, I would let us know, like, hey, this job that you did with whatever client it is that you saw on our social media, like I would love to do something like that in the near future if a job like that comes up. I just think telling us that you're paying attention to what we're doing is really important.
Without naming names, there's a gentleman we were talking about yesterday, whom I say finally, because we're finally going to have a job for him. You want to tell a little bit about that story?
Yeah, it's a gentleman who's been reaching out to you for a long time.
For years.
And you shared his contact information with me, and I kind of went about it the way I talked about earlier. Is I reached out to him and I said, hey, thanks for reaching out. I got your contact information from Dan, and I met with him, and it was a great conversation. He really is excited to work with us and excited that he finally got some FaceTime with me. And yeah, I have him, in the back of my mind for this, whatever job comes up for him. And just super talented, super nice, and it's just going to be really exciting to finally get him to work with us officially.
Yeah, I mean, this guy probably reached out to me for the first time, I want to say like the end of 22, maybe early 22, and just did it right. Sent the initial reel. The work was great. We connected. Didn't have anything for him. Followed up a month later. Followed up a couple months after that. Then I continued to communicate with him and say, your work is great. We just don't have anything for you. Got the hint. 6 months later, followed up. 6 months after that, followed up. Then it became like then in like 2023, 2024, he decided to follow up quarterly. Very simple emails. Hey, I hope you're well. Here's an updated reel. Here's the latest piece I did. Here's a thing. Or just, I'm available.
Right.
Not looking for anything but an acknowledgement of the email, a receipt of email, and it just went on about his day. And it was a really healthy conversation. It was a really healthy relationship. Professionalism, quality of work, respect for time. To me, it's a success because there's two things I love about what we do. Obviously, the creative, that's what got me into it, but I love getting people work. I love working with new people. I love the idea of providing work for people. So that's exciting.
And he, now that he knows that there's something in the ether for him that we have in mind for him, he's reaching out, and I told him projects go on hold or get postponed, so he knows that. But he is following up and just letting us know, like, hey, I'm, like you said, still available. So it's just great communication. And part of the conversation that I had with him, which I really liked, was I let him know all the different systems that we're using, Slack, Google. And it was all super easy, like no problem. He's used it, he's ready, and just knows exactly what we're going to be doing when we get started.
Yep, that's a good point. I always encourage editors at large to know more than one system so that they can freelance. They cannot limit their potential. All right, cool. I want to pivot a little bit, and I want to find out, why, Michelle, are you in this business?
Oh, I don't know, actually. That's a hard question. I started originally when I went to school. I wanted to be a journalist, so I went to school for broadcast journalism, and my minor was in Spanish because I thought I speak Polish, so Spanish should be easy, So originally I wanted to be a reporter. When I got out of school, I didn't want to move into small towns across the United States. So I thought, okay, let's try LA. So I went to LA, did some entertainment news jobs. They were, I was young, so I was a production assistant, but I thought, Chicago is where I want to be. So I came back, worked some shows like the Judge Mathis show, and then I found myself back in news at WGN and News Nation, and I really liked it. I was never a journalist. I was never in front of the camera, but I did work behind the scenes, helping produce interviews and like lifestyle segments. But it was just something that I started not liking that much. And I found myself here at Bottle Rocket, and I really love it because I'm managing people, but I'm also doing creative work. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, and it's a really fun team.
Yeah. You're leaving out a small detail. I don't want to change your resume for you, but the word on the street is that you reached out to Bottle Rocket Media several years before.
I did.
Yeah. So going back to the idea of networking and staying in touch, can you tell us that story?
Yeah. So how I found out about Bottle Rocket is you were shooting a commercial at my aunt's house, near my aunt's house for some company, and my aunt was like, you need to come here. There's a company, Bottle Rocket, filming a commercial. You should talk to them. You guys wrapped before I can get there, but she did get the information. That's how I started emailing you. I met with you when I was, super young. It was probably like 2016, but it didn't work out. And then there was a opening later on that, it did work out, and here I am.
Yep. Persistence.
Yeah, that's something that I tell young people a lot. It's all about not burning bridges, and really all about Oprah, because everyone is like connected with Oprah
in Chicago.
In Chicago for sure, and in LA, because every job I've had, it's been connected to Oprah. In LA, my boss had worked at what is the network OWN or
Yep.
O, and then when I came back here, every job I worked at, there was either some kind of crew member that worked on the Oprah show. And then you guys, it's just everyone knows each other, so you just really need to be smart and not burn bridges, and just show people that you want to learn and keep moving up.
I think that's the takeaway from this conversation is, you always hear people talking about networking with regards to sales, but I think
Right.
a lot of people who are in the gig economy or freelancers don't realize that they're essentially independent companies or, obviously independent contractors, but if they treat their network the way a salesperson would treat their network, the work would come more frequently. So it's about, staying in touch with your network, improving your work, always developing your skills, and just staying connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every time someone walks through the door, there's some kind of connection.
Yeah, it seems like it's a big world, but it's not that big of a world.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that like you said, so many people happen to be connected to the Oprah Winfrey Show. I don't think that's so strange being in Chicago, but
Right.
then you went to LA and you also bumped into the similar same people.
Right.
It's a small network of people that do what we do in the scheme of the world, and if you're nice and you're diligent and you keep developing and keep learning, you will work.
Exactly.
All right, let that be the last word today on the Finally podcast. For those of you who don't know, Michelle is on the other side of the wall from me. And this seems to still be the best way for us to communicate from one another. So anyway, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.